Hi, Mr. Robert.
Hello. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for accepting our invite, Mr. Robert. It's really a pleasure. And the topic is so interesting that it's all about innovations and implementations.
It is. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, it's all about, so we have a lot of students who are very excited and for this session, and there were a lot of registrations for your session. So
I'm happy to hear, especially given that it's a Friday night. So I'm impressed that people will come out. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so they've joined in various parts of our country. They've registered from different areas, like, because it's been virtual, and so it's like, geographically, if you look at it, there are people from different geographical locations within India also.
I should mention that I was in Mumbai probably, well, it was when my son was born. So it was about 20 years ago, and my God, I loved it. So I have very fond memories of very fond memories of Indians, and very fond memories of Indian food in particular.
Oh, so we look forward anytime next when you are in India, as Jai Hind College will be happy to host you at Jai Hind. It will be our pleasure.
Thank you. That'd be wonderful.
Ma'am, so can we begin with the session?
Yes, please.
A very good evening to one and all present here. Am I audible?
Yes.
Sorry. A very good evening to one and all present here, and welcome to the last session of day one of the Global Entrepreneurship Summit 2022, presented by HDFC Bank, powered by Bright Outdoor Media Private Limited, co-sponsored by Baggett, in association with Plum Body Loving, trading partner Havenspire, home decor partner Whipple Homes, news and media partner The Education Tree. The Global Entrepreneurship Summit 2022, in association with Digital India, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, National E-Governance Division, Make in India, Skill India, Maharashtra State Innovation Society, Startup India, AWS Activate, Mumbai Angels Network, Inflection Point Ventures, Enactus, TIE Mumbai, and Vadhwani Foundation. I welcome you all to this session. Today's session will be hosted by Karishma Kriplani. I now hand over the session to her. Over to you, Karishma.
Thank you, Ashna. The man who propelled a law firm, making it the highest-ranking firm in Canada for client innovation. The man who is endowed with multiple skills in the field of business like strategy, product innovation, analytics, consultancy. You name it, and he has it. Give it up for Mr. Robert Garmes, the Chief Innovation Officer at Fasken Martino, a leading international law firm. What sets him apart is his boundless curiosity to turn every possibility into practicality. He has led major business transformation projects and held senior positions at McKinsey, Microsoft, Workwind Corporations, and Blockbuster Canada. An undergraduate degree holder in maths from Harvard University and an MBA from Northwestern University. He knows how to break down complex problems into simple, actionable steps. Thank you for joining us today, sir. Could we go ahead with the questions? So can we start with the questions?
Sure. Did you want me to start, or does somebody want to pose the questions to me?
So I'll ask the questions.
Karishma, you can begin with the questions.
Okay. So you're a pioneer in innovation and change management. My question is based on the ideology that innovation and change are two facets of the same coin. Can you shed some light on how can one effectively manage the changes which are made in the process to ensure innovation ideas are implemented?
Sure. First of all, I just want to start by thanking everyone once again for attending and for having me here today. It's my pleasure to be with you. I'll make one correction to the introduction. I was at Fasken Martino up until about a week ago, and I am now Chief Product Officer of the Guarantors, which is an insurance tech company. based in New York. But I'll speak broadly to both experiences. Obviously, my guarantor's experience is a little bit newer, and also, of course, just to innovation as a sector as a whole. But when it comes to change, I agree completely. Innovation is all about change. You could be really innovative, but if you haven't impacted any change, then you won't have much to show for the innovation. And I think of change in a few ways. First and foremost, I think of change in terms of solutions that really, as we say in English, blow your hair back. Like, they can't just be a little bit better than what we have today. They've got to be way better. 2x, 5x, 10x, if you listen to Peter Thiel. But solutions that are just, say, marginally better, 10% better, 15% better, at least in a law firm, won't cut it. People are too busy. They have too much on their plate to pay attention to just incremental improvements here and there. So first and foremost, we're after really significant improvements in whatever problem we're looking to solve. When it comes to change, we have to focus on what's in it for our lawyers. And, I call it WIIFM. What's in it for me in general? How does the participant, the end user, the client benefit from the change? And if that's not properly laid out, good luck affecting that change. I think one thing we've learned, or I learned at Fasken, is really remapping the process. Often, even small innovations entail a different way of working, a different way of thinking about a problem, a different way of going through the steps. And that has to be really well laid out so people understand what the new method is and why it's so much better. And then the last thing I'll point to about change is having business champions. Because if it's just, say, myself or the innovation team or one of yourselves pushing an innovation, we'll only get so far. But if we have real champions from the business helping us push the innovation, helping us demonstrate, how it helped them so much, that speaks volumes to their colleagues and to the business at large.
Thank you, sir. Our next question would be, since you have experience in some of the biggest companies in the world, how do you spot opportunities for innovation, even in a well-established organization? What is it that you look for change and to make it more efficient? How can we understand the core problems and work on them?
Yeah, there's a few things I look at. I first and foremost, and this is my preference, I start with the client experience. So maybe not just my internal stakeholders, but my external stakeholders. And how's it for them interacting with the firm, interacting, in the case of Fasken Martineau, with our lawyers? What are their bottlenecks? What are their pain points? And I usually start from there for a couple of reasons. One is they're clients of the firm. So, you first and foremost, you want to make your clients happy. The other is often a good way to get folks internally to change is by getting folks externally to change. And so it creates a little bit of pressure on the internal stakeholders to keep up with the client base, or, we'll be falling behind. So those are some of the places I look. I look at core processes. So how are we delivering work? How are we communicating? How are we collaborating? I look at new areas. So areas where I think we can maybe stake out a bit of an advantage relative to our competition. So what ideas have been tried? What are startups thinking about? What are some of the vendors doing? Often some of the best ideas come from our vendors because they're obviously trying to solve these problems. And then it's really bringing people together in different ways, bringing mixed groups together. So bringing our associates together with our lawyers, with some of our administrators, having focus groups, having workshops, having brainstorming sessions. And that's where a lot of the good ideas come out. And they're really simple format. We really like whiteboards. We really like Post-it notes for posting ideas. We really like voting buttons, which are little red and green stickies for voting on ideas, and anything that gets people up to the board and kind of scribbling and sharing. That's going to help with your innovation effort.
Thank you, sir. So moving ahead, for some people, realizing a dream is the end of a journey, whereas for some people, it's just the beginning. What motivates you to go beyond your boundaries, and where does the passion come from?
Yeah, for me personally, that's kind of a personal question. So for me personally, it really comes from wanting to make things better, wanting to make things better for our people, wanting to make things better for our clients, wanting to have an impact, and knowing at the end of the day that you've moved the dial. And that to me is what motivates me. I think it's a motivator across our organization. I often say that, the best motivator is just showing some progress. people don't expect things to be fixed overnight. In a lot of industries and a lot of law firms, there's plenty to work on. But if you could show that you're having measurable impact, that things are slowly but surely improving, I think that's what engages the larger group. And certainly that's what, I find to be the most valuable part and the most rewarding part of innovation.
Thank you, sir. So what advice would you like to share with the next generation on innovation and its needs? Also, can innovations be made sustainable, or does it always come with a cost? As we march towards the future, should we do something to protect the present as well?
Well, I guess the first piece of advice is you guys have a valuable voice, and you may not realize it, but as kind of newcomers onto the scene, new graduates and new employees, new entrepreneurs, you've got that fresh set of eyes. So you'll see things that you wonder, boy, like how could things possibly work this way? Why hasn't this been fixed, or why can't we possibly do it this better way? And I think it's important to get your voice heard and not to accept the status quo. So my first piece of advice for you is really leverage that advantage you have as someone who's maybe a little bit newer to the scene, who isn't jaded or isn't rooted in all the current practice. And I think you can add a lot of value just by asking, the basic questions. Why? Why do we do things this way? Why haven't we tried this? Follow your gut instinct. I think your point is well taken. I think any change always has a mixed set of consequences, hopefully a lot of good consequences, usually some unintended consequences as well. Generally, more and more folks who come out ahead by the change, but perhaps a few who come out behind, who are left behind. And my other piece of advice would be just not to leave anyone in the lurch. If you're sensing that some people aren't keeping up with the change, understanding the change, succeeding with the change, it's really a great practice to focus on them inordinately to make sure that you understand, well, what can we do for them? How do we raise all boats? And how do we not make this a winners and losers idea, but everybody wins? And those are the best changes of all.
Thank you, sir. Moving ahead, many people fail to accomplish their targets while working on projects, not because they lack skills and knowledge, but because they lose sight and don't track their performances with the right tools. I believe that tracking and measuring progress is detrimental to understanding how effective an innovation is. What key performance indicators do you use to track innovation?
Yeah, there's a few, and I have to admit, I probably don't use as many as I should. So a lot of this is anecdotal as opposed to quantitative, but we are fortunate in our industry in that we have a third-party consulting firm. It's called Actionable, and they come in and they rate the law firms on a whole series of attributes, including innovation. And it's not just innovation in terms of what the consulting firm thinks about the firm. It's innovation in terms of what our clients are telling them about our firm. And so we've been really fortunate in that our clients tell Actionable that we're the #1 firm in Canada right now from a client innovation point of view. So I kind of start there. That's sort of my best external metric to know that I'm moving the dial. Certainly I look at adoption. So how many folks are using a new innovation? Satisfaction I look at revenue. So some of our innovations have prices attached. So how well are we driving new revenues for the firm? And then I think probably the most valuable metric really at the end of the day is engagement. So how excited are folks by the innovation program and roadmap? How engaged are they with the innovation team? Who are we really working with and developing relationships with? And in a law firm, that means which practitioners, which partners, which practice groups do we really feel like we've got a good working relationship with? And that's probably at least for our team at Fasken, the most important metric of all. Oh, and you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. Moving ahead, technologies like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and blockchain, etc., are taking over the world as it can augment, as well as, in some cases, substitute the work humans can do. What impact will emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and blockchain have in making businesses more efficient?
That's a good question. I really like that question. I think we're still at the very beginning of seeing what that impact is, but I feel strongly that particularly when used together, AI and blockchain can really change the world and certainly can change our firm. And so, you can think of law firms nowadays as big document companies. We produce contracts and paper that you need for various transactions of different complexity. But generally speaking, once the transaction is executed, you've bought your house or closed the deal on that M&A, the law firm kind of fades to the background. And what excites me most about AI and blockchain when used together is that it allows us to play an important role, maybe even a leading role in the post-contract execution phase. So say, for example, you are buying a house. No longer do you just stop transacting with your law firm at the sale, at closing, but you can imagine now through blockchain, having the law firm playing a role in automatically dispersing the funds, automatically updating the registries, automatically releasing escrow or money held in trust. And there's sort of a whole list of things. And as the transactions get more complex, that list grows, that suddenly law firms and lawyers and smart contracts can start to help enforce and ensure that you're in compliance with based on the structure of the deal. So that's what excites me most. There's plenty of other areas that AI plays a role in. I'll mention that as it is today, law firms are already making plenty of use of AI in various areas, from litigations, where in a large litigation, we may have millions, even tens of millions of documents. And so we use AI to comb through those and find patterns and figure out what content we have in our midst, to contract reviews, where AI is really good at breaking down contracts into recognizable pieces. So if I want to know, say, as an acquirer of a company, which contracts are assignable to me, I can run an AI program. I can see all the assignment clauses. And in the future, I can even have AI interpret, is that contract assignable, yes or no? So a lot of long-term process and a lot of short-term wins already, particularly on the AI side.
Thank you so much, sir. Like we know, change is inevitable. Hence, innovation has to be a constant process that must be used to try and make the business efficient day by day. How do you go about innovation in your organization daily?
Yeah, I'll say, we started by defining innovation, which is harder to do than you might think, because we were getting tripped up a little bit about how innovative does an idea have to be to fall into the bucket. What if it's something we've already considered before, or others have done, or it's a new idea, but it's not that cool. Is that still innovation? And we decided the best way to define it was by use of a quote. And we found a quote by Rear Admiral Grace Hopper, who way back when was quite an innovator for the US military. And her quote was that the most dangerous phrase in the English language is, "We've always done it this way." And so it doesn't matter really how new an idea is, whether you've thought of it, whether it's super techie or not techie at all. If it's something that the organization isn't currently doing that helps, that's innovation, period. So I try to bring that same approach to my innovation team, where if we're doing things the same way year after year, we're probably not practicing what we preach. So always looking at what are the new ways we can add value, what are new ways to think about the team, and what are new skills we can add to the team to make sure that we're continuing to get a diverse mindset on any given problem. And how do we shake things up a bit? How do we build on platforms we have, but also offer new platforms so that we're not stuck in our ways, even as an innovation team?
Thank you, sir. So the next question would be, trust plays a major role in the corporate world today, especially for companies and firms that provide services. Trust makes or breaks a deal in these circumstances. How can corporates build trust not only amongst their customers, but also within the organization? And how can they achieve this through innovation?
Yeah, I think it starts with showing that we care, showing that we care as an organization, as a management team, as a senior management team. That goes a long way. As I mentioned, progress goes a long way too, showing that we're actually able to get some ideas funded, put some new processes and products out there, have some quick wins. That's huge, because otherwise it's just an abstract concept. And, I think it goes a long way showing that we're willing to make some investments and willing to make some mistakes. And I think when people see that, you're doing right by them and that things are getting better and that there is effort and impact to be seen, the trust comes alongside with that. And short of those things, I think it's really hard to build trust, because not that folks won't trust you personally, but they'll just say, okay, I'm going to wait for this to pass because, all good things must pass. So you definitely don't want to be in that situation. You want to show that you've got a real program that's actually producing real results.
Thank you, sir. So being in this industry, you have gained so much experience. What qualities are required for future innovation executors to recognize areas of change, find a solution, and execute it accordingly?
It's a bunch of different roles, this innovator role. It's part tech, part business. In my group, I really like having a mix of business, tech, and legal skills, being a law firm. At times, I feel more like a consultant. At times, I feel more like a change management expert. Sometimes I feel more like an architect. So there's different aspects to the role. I think in terms of qualities, I think it's a balance of being really pragmatic, but also having a little bit of a dreaminess to you. You got to be a bit of a dreamer, but a bit of a pragmatist at the same time. If you're not a bit of a dreamer, you won't be setting your targets far enough. And if you're not a bit of a pragmatist, you won't be getting things done. So you kind of need both. Maybe the number one quality is just what we call in English stick-to-itiveness, persistence, resilience. They kind of all go together. But making sure that you're not shy about putting new things out there, making sure that you're not too sensitive about maybe the first version of something not getting rave reviews, being willing to put out minimum viable products, react quickly to feedback, keep making things better until they really hit that critical mass. And I'd say also having empathy for our users, for the situation they're in, for the pain points they're experiencing, for the lack of time they have to even entertain the change. Empathy will go a long way too, just to sussing out what are the right answers and what are the right ways of bringing about those right answers for people.
Thank you, sir. So how do you effectively prototype striking the right balance between speed, resources developed, and learning while executing an idea?
Yeah, I'd say we have aspects of agile to our methodology. We're not a pure agile shop, but we do like to release things in smaller releases. We do like to iterate quickly, as I mentioned. We don't like to spend, months and years working on one problem without having anything in front of clients. So having early client feedback, we always think is better. And sometimes we even design to test. So sometimes the important part of the design isn't when can you have something fully ready in production, but it's when can you have a really reliable test of something to know if you're even on the right track. And so we build that into our plans. The earlier we can get a test, the earlier we can get a yay or nay as to whether we're really pursuing the right problem in the right way. That just sets us up for success down the road.
Thank you, sir. Although prevention is better than cure, there are unfortunates that can't be prevented or prepared for. What are these potential black swan events for a business, and how do you plan for them?
This is a tough one to answer because you don't come across these every day. I will mention I work for Blockbuster Canada, so I have had some experience with the black swan. And the years I worked for Blockbuster Canada were two of the best years that we'd ever had in the Canadian market. And I think within a year of my leaving Blockbuster, the whole business in Canada had been closed. So the swan can hit you quick. We were aware that the business was under pressure, but we weren't aware that it was that close to end of life. And I think it's a cautionary tale about the mix of evolutionary and revolutionary change. And what I like to say in innovation is it shouldn't be either or, it should be both. So you should have goals that really are quite revolutionary for the firm, for the organization, but plans that are step-by-step and achievable and incremental that get you to that revolutionary goal. And if you don't have both, and particularly if you don't have that revolutionary kind of big goal set out for yourself in the future, you can end up, prone to the black swan, because here Netflix came, they had bigger goals than Blockbuster, and boy, it was quick. It didn't take very long. For a while they were mailing out movies to people, and we said, well, gee, we could do that better than they could. And then by the time we tried to react, they became a digital streaming behemoth, and we ended up in the dustbin. So lesson learned.
Thank you, sir. Change is the only constant in life, with new technology being created, such as artificial intelligence, with numerous possibilities. Will the common man have to endure the consequences of these changes? Could new innovations be a potential threat to our existing jobs? If yes, then how do we overcome them?
Yeah, the metaphor I like to use for the legal industry is medicine. So there's been lots of change in medicine, lots of change in equipment and diagnostics. And when you go to your doctor, unbeknownst to you, they're using all sorts of diagnostics to come up even with the advice that they give you. But you still kind of want to see your doctor. You still want them to know you, come up with a plan that's right for you, read all the machines and AIs and whatnot, and make sure that they're understanding, whether the systems are in sync or where the anomalies are. And I think legal is the same, and I think a lot of fields are the same, where you're still going to want your lawyer to conduct, negotiations, do deeper problem solving, really understand what the relationships are and what the dynamics are between the various parties. That's never going to change. But maybe what you don't need your lawyer doing quite as much of is, reading routine documents, drafting agreements that are, commonplace or boilerplate, or doing any of the rote work that, really at legal fees doesn't provide value to the client. So I think in general, it makes a lot of jobs way better, certainly in medicine, certainly in law. I think you can argue the same about the computer. The computer came along, I guess it was 50, 60, 70 years ago. And we all wondered, would the computer get rid of jobs? Well, it didn't get rid of jobs, but it redefined them. And so I think AI and blockchain and some of these new innovations will continue to do that. I think we'll be better off for it. But I think it's a mistake to think that some of these industries will just go away. They'll just need to morph and adjust. So I think of it much more in terms of man plus machine. And my God, what can we do when working together vis-a-vis, man versus machine?
Yes, sir. So next question would be, how did your old choices lead to where you are now? When was it that you knew you wanted to be the change?
So into innovation, you mean, or
yes,
just
sir.
in general? Yeah.
No, sir, innovation.
It's funny. I think there's two types of careers. There's some folks who have career choices that they know at a very young age. They know they want to be a doctor or veterinarian or nuclear scientist, and off they go. And some of us, and I'll put myself in the second group, we kind of figure it out as we go. And so I would not have put myself in the innovation bucket necessarily from an early age. I knew I wanted to do business and tech. I worked at McKinsey. I worked at Microsoft. Worked at a very innovative Canadian startup called Infotech immediately prior to Fasken. And I think it just, for me, kind of evolved where, I started developing some of the skills, some of the consulting skills, some of the technology skills, some of the process skills, and it all kind of came together. So, I think both career paths are valid, but for those of us who kind of maybe are more figuring it out as we go, I think you just have to trust yourself to go after that next experience where you're going to learn the most, where you're going to maybe not just rely on past successes, but challenge yourself in new ways. I'd argue I'm continuing to practice what I preach because here I am as Chief Product Officer in the insurance industry. And so I'm challenging myself in new ways. And I think if you're true to that, you're going to end up in a space that you really love, whether it's innovation or some other area.
Thank you, sir. That was really helpful. Our next question would be, it is said that diverse teams perform better. Leading a diverse workforce is one of the new challenges of thousands of organizations today. Could you please share some of the tips or suggestions to effectively manage a diverse team?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. First of all, you have to build a diverse team. That's the first challenge. And even thinking what the vectors are of diversity. So I mentioned one in our team, business skills, legal skills, and technology skills. I came in with some business and tech, not legal. My first few hires in my group were lawyers who had some of the technical skills. So together we had some of that diversity. You know, I could kind of bring in maybe some examples from other industries. They can translate those examples to what is most appropriate for law. I think just hiring for diversity is critical. And we've gotten way better at that over my years at Fasken. And then I think a lot of it is just, you know, not allowing a hierarchy within the group. Sometimes there's top performers, lower performers, high value roles, lower value roles. And if you're not paying equal attention to everyone in the group, you're going to be missing out on some of the diversity and some of the different opinions. And sometimes it's the quieter, kind of softer opinions that are the most important ones. So you have to really respect what you're hearing from all areas of the group, not just the favorite places you have to go to. And then I think, at least with the level of maturity that we reached at Fasken, it's just basic business sense and interpersonal sensitivity. So I don't know that we've taken it any farther than that yet, at least not in my group. But, you know, being sensitive to the different cultures, of course, different ways of interacting, different traditions, different holidays, different ways of dress. So there's all sorts of different dimensions. And I think just some common sense and sensitivity gets you a long way. And before too long, I think people realize it's a diverse group because it is. So you don't have to do any more or any less than that.
So do you believe that we should hire people from diverse groups? Does that help innovation better?
Absolutely. And I will even say that we've had a lot of success, even in dealing with recruiting firms that are specific to a group. And so for diversity purposes, you have some recruiting companies that focus on different races, different genders, different nationalities. And we've had really good success with that channel in particular. It adds to the diversity of the group. It gets folks to the table that, you know, otherwise probably wouldn't have come into through the regular channels. And I find one thing that I've had to reorient myself around is, certainly throughout much of my career, I always felt that, gee, friends and family and friends of family, you know, that was a great place to look for talent. You know, you know somebody is strong in your group, you know they have a family member or friend that they're recommending, you know, why not bring them into the group and you have almost a sure win. Well, that's not going to get you a very diverse team. So you have to really push yourself to look in different places to get that diversity.
Thank you so much, sir. So how can we break down complex, daunting problems into a series of actionable steps, and how to know where to start from?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think the most important thought is exactly that. It's a series of actionable steps. You know, if these things feel overwhelming, then you haven't broken it down enough. If they feel trivial, then maybe you've broken them down too much. But you want, you know, innovation shouldn't feel like a really risky business. It shouldn't feel like you're trying to hit a home run every single time. It should feel more like singles and doubles with the occasional triple or home run. Sorry, I should know the cricket metaphor, but the baseball one comes first to mind. And I think, you know, another mistake people sometimes make is delaying big risky items to later in the process. So if you know there's something big that needs to be figured out, try to bring that earlier into the process. And I'll give you an example. So we were looking at legal project management as a big area of opportunity for Fasken. Legal project management really is just project management for lawyers, but it includes all sorts of areas from budgeting to communication to change management to how we interact with our clients. And we really felt like the first order of business was just getting folks to create a plan and a budget. And, you know, if you could start there, then you can start to pull the thread on all the ensuing steps. So the first thing we looked at is, well, how can we bring in a budgeting system and a budgeting process that would work for our lawyers? And so, you know, it wasn't the whole LPM process. If we tried to install all of LPM at once, it likely would have failed. It wasn't just a little piece part, but it was something big enough to sink our teeth into, but not so big that we thought it might, upset the apple cart. So just an example of how to sequence things.
Thank you, sir. So how do you captivate your customers and surface the latent needs?
Pardon me?
So, and how can you So how do you captivate your customers and surface latent needs?
And solve these latent needs. So a couple of things. One is working through the work process with clients. So often a client's internal or external will share something with you. And usually it's an idea to solve a pain point that they're experiencing. And so you want to step back from that and say, okay, that's great. That's a great idea. Tell me how this makes things better for you, and see if you can't get at the underlying point of pain and the underlying process that produces that point of pain. So what are you actually trying to do? Let's step through that process. Let's make sure we really understand it. And then let's re-architect that process together. And sometimes you'll find that their initial instinct was right, but more often than not, you'll find, well, they were solving things in a suboptimal way. They're not technologists, they're not innovators, but they know their pain points. And so if you can step through that with them, then I think you've got a much richer knowledge base to bring real solutions for clients. So I think it's all about process mapping. It's all about making sure you understand what's holding people back or why they think something is an opportunity. And then you've got a really good basis on which to ideate, brainstorm, and solve.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really insightful, and we'd love to hear all the answers. I hope we all can use it at every step. I'd like to now hand it over to Tisha.
Thank you, sir. So on behalf of the entire ESAL and Skill Hub team of Jai Hind College, our principal and faculty, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude towards you for being here today. Your insights have been truly insightful, and I'm sure everyone has learned so much more about the deeper insights of innovation. Thank you so much once again for being here today. It was extremely great to have you on board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's my pleasure. I wish you all the best, and looking forward to seeing all of you innovate in the years ahead. You know where to reach me on LinkedIn if you have any questions after the session.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. It was indeed very nice the way you have answered all the questions, and even the insights that you have given when the questions were posted to you. So that was really nice. At this platform, Mr. Robert, I really want, because based on that, I really feel that if we can have one masterclass with you at some point of time when you are available for the larger interest of the students, because right now we had questions which were there, but there are so many other people who want to ask more things to you. So, and with reference to some of these startups also, because art of innovation is extremely important from the startups perspective also. So we would request you to do one of the session at some later point. We will send you an official mail, and as per your convenience, Robert, sir.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be a master chef anytime. So as long as it doesn't involve cooking, I should be fine.
Don't worry, we'll be cooking. You just tell us the ingredients, Mr. Robert. We will cook, don't worry. And I'm sure the recipe will be edible, though it will not have licenses, but it'll do well.
That sounds great.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Robert. On behalf of Jai Hind College, we really appreciate your time, your valuable insights, and we look forward for this association in future. Thank you, sir.
Same here. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Have
Bye.
a great weekend.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for joining. Everybody, please fill in the feedback form before you leave the session. Everyone attending from YouTube Live, this feedback form has been posted in the comments. Please fill it in as you all have filled it in the previous sessions for us to calculate the number of sessions that you have attended. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in all the sessions. We mark the end of day one here. We will continue with our sessions tomorrow. The schedule has already been circulated to all of you all. Thank you so much.